You might have to oh, never mind. There it goes.
Awesome. All right. I think we're all good and we're ready to start. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Felder. And if this is the first time that you are hopping on a leadership development series with us, so nice to meet you all. I work for the Center for Ethical Leadership as their program coordinator, and I run leadership curriculum programs similar to this seminar series, as well as kind of giving presentations all over campus. I also do personalized leadership coaching. Really, I'm just here to help you develop your leadership skills in any way. Our office, the Center for Ethical Leadership, is really awesome, and it's just growing constantly. We have scholarship programs that, some of my coworkers that are on the call run, as well as myself. We have the President's Leadership Council, the McKnight Scholars. We also, Student Government Association runs out of our office. We have some residential life programs. I always miss something anytime I'm listing it. We have the Devon Scholars. Really, if you're just interested in leadership development in any way, our office is here for you. We also run the Lead Orange campaign, where we highlight phenomenal leaders on social media. So if you're not already following that, give it a follow. It's fun. Again, if I missed anything, I'm so sorry, but we are in offices 232 and 250 of the Student Union. Really, you can drop by anytime, and we're here to help you with your leadership. But we're going to go ahead and kind of just jump in now to the presentation. So we are going to be talking about self-care for leaders. This is absolutely a subject that I kind of nerd out over. My background is actually in health and mental health services. So I worked in the field for quite a while before I came to work in leadership at OSU. And I just think that self-care is so incredibly important, but it's also something that can be really misunderstood. And I just feel like this is very fitting, with everything that we're dealing with right now, from election stress to pandemic stress to finals, to all of the mental health burdens and just stressors that we're all feeling. I think that this is a good time to kind of talk about self-care and what it is and what it isn't. And just talk a little bit about why mental health and self-care is so important for leaders. Okay, so just before we jump into everything, I always kind of have to go over the basics of this. So the benefits of attending these leadership development series is this is the third. So if you've attended all three this semester, you're almost there. So if you attend at least 4 seminars, you will receive an invitation to the Lead Orange Awards in the spring, which, dependent on social distancing and COVID and all that, it'll either be virtual or in person, TBD. But no matter what, if you attend 4 of these, you'll get to come to some sort of the Lead Orange Awards, where you'll be given a certificate. If you attend at least 5 of these seminars, you will receive a medal in leadership that you can wear to graduation, in addition to that invitation to the award ceremony and the certificate. So throughout the year, we will have 6 seminars. Again, this is the third. And so if you just come to 1 more next semester, you get that certificate. If you come to at least 5 of them, you get everything else. And if you come to at least 6, you're just awesome, and give yourself a pat on the back because you stayed with me the whole time. Okay. All right. So for those of you that maybe weren't at the first and second seminar, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a recap. So our theme for this year is leadership stories and why those are important. And so the first one was just about creating your narrative as a leader. So why stories? Stories help shape the culture we want to create as a leader. And individual stories can motivate us to join them, to engage, or invest in their movements, ideas, and brands. We'll also talk about how stories relate to mental health and self-care today. And then our second seminar was about creating a seat at the table and being a socially just leader. And what that is that it's the responsibility of the leader to make sure that diverse stories are being heard before decisions are made. If you want to watch any of these past seminars, they are on our website. If you just Google the Center for Ethical Leadership, it'll come right up, and you can watch the recordings. But I just kind of want to give you guys a recap and let you know that these themes are going to again be present throughout this presentation. Even though, we're talking about self-care, remember still creating your own story and making space for others' stories. Okay. All right, so now we're kind of just going to jump right into it. So leaders serve. We have talked about the idea of servant leadership, and that, leaders put those that they're serving as the number one priority at all times. Typically, those are people like our employees, our peers, our companies, our clubs. We as leaders are typically having to think about so many different things at the same time. Maybe how our employees are doing their jobs, or how are we meeting our missions and our goals? How are we with efficiency? A lot of the time, the last thing we think about as leaders is ourselves. We really kind of put our own well-being on the back burner, and I don't think we do it intentionally. It's just leadership very much preaches, that you put others before yourself, and you think about, others' needs and others' stories and creating a seat at the table for them. But I think we as leaders sometimes get the idea of serving a little bit misconstrued. Just because you are serving others, you're putting them first and putting their needs first, doesn't mean that you have to completely neglect yourself or lose yourself or make yourself sick while you're making others better. It very much has to be a give and take. I really quick have to let some people in. Okay. So I want to remind you guys to serve yourself. So if you guys wouldn't mind unmuting, or whatever you feel comfortable with, you can put it in the chat box. But how many of you have flown on an airplane and listened to this spiel from a flight attendant? What do they tell you about this mask that she's holding?
Put your own on, and then you can.
Yeah, I heard two different people say it. So you need to put your mask on first before helping or assisting any others, which can be hard, especially if you're a parent and your child is sitting right next to you. The first thing you're going to want to do is put the mask on them, right? But if you think about it in this way, what help are you to anyone if you're passed out, if you're incapacitated? You can't even help them put their mask on if you're not breathing oxygen, right? And so I really want to challenge you guys to kind of see this as how you take care of yourself as a leader or as a manager. You have to put your own mask on first before serving others. Because in the most literal sense, we can't survive without oxygen. We can't survive and be helpful to our team or to anyone around us if we aren't healthy ourselves. I'm going to check the chat box. Okay, so I talked about that self-care is honestly really misunderstood. Something that I saw when I was in the health field and working in wellness is people kind of immediately, that first thing that pops in their head when I think about self-care is taking a bubble bath, getting a massage, having to do all of these very extravagant and sometimes expensive things. And that's not what self-care is. Self-care is just doing anything to protect your own well-being, health, and happiness. And so, as you can see on this first column of what self-care isn't, it's not selfish. But a lot of the time we end up thinking it is because we end up thinking that it's this like once in a while splurge, that we have to isolate ourselves and we have to go take that bubble bath or get a massage or whatever it may be. And so we kind of feel guilty about taking that time away. And it isn't selfish. And even if you are one of those people that your self-care is a bubble bath or it is a massage, that's absolutely okay. If that's your way to recharge, you have to recharge your battery at some point. Because again, if you don't have that oxygen mask on, you are not going to be helpful to anyone in any capacity. But I kind of bring up this subject of what we typically think it is, because self-care can be as simple as remembering to drink water during the day, or getting enough sleep, calling a friend, just maybe going out in nature if you enjoy nature and just taking a deep breath outside, going for a walk. It is not something that you can just put off until you have more time. It's not like a bank account where you save and save and save and save and then you spend it all in one location. It is something that you have to consistently do daily. You have to breathe in that oxygen daily, and it can be, again, the smallest of things. So in this other column, what it is an active choice to participate in the activities that are known to increase your overall wellness. So we all know what these things are for ourselves. You know, for some people, it might be going to the gym, going over to the Colvin and working out. For other people, that might sound like the worst way to spend their time ever. But, you know, maybe bird watching sounds great, or maybe just drinking some water sounds great. Again, it is an ongoing daily practice. It's taking action to preserve your own health and also improve your health. And again, just really that big takeaway is it is protecting one's own well-being and happiness. So for those visual learners like myself, the best way I can describe self-care, if the mask analogy didn't work for you, is that you cannot pour from an empty cup. You have to take care of yourself first. So I have two very random cups right here. And I'm not going to actually pour out of them because I would spill on myself because I know myself too well. But this is full of tea. And if I have a full cup of tea and I pour out into this cup, I helped a friend get through a crisis. And then I pour out again, and maybe I helped my family around the house. I pour out again. I take care of tasks at work. I pour out again. I answer a bunch of emails. In a student's case, maybe you took a test and a test and a test. Eventually, everything's going to be in here. All of that effort that you gave is going to be in other people's cups or in other situations' cups, and you're going to be back here with an empty cup. And you cannot pour from an empty cup. What good are you to, you know, your own success or to helping and leading others if you're always at 0%, if you're always at an empty cup? You physically cannot pour when something is at empty. And so how you refill this cup is through self-care. And again, it can be whatever whatever is improving your own wellness, whatever makes you happy. It doesn't have to be this typical, very commercialized idea of self-care. I think a lot of the time we also see in the media, that self-care has to be, going on a shopping spree, and obviously businesses would love for you to do that. So they've commercialized that a little bit. But again, it can just be anything that honestly fills up your cup and makes you happy. Okay. So kind of going back to why self-care is so important for leaders. This model that you see up here is called the ABCs of self-care. So that's your awareness, your balance, and your connection. So when we don't pay attention to these things, as you can see, there's physical, mental, and spiritual aspects of all of these. And when we don't allow ourselves to have self-care, or we don't think about ourselves, especially in a leadership perspective, we're going to start seeing these different avenues start deteriorating. So you might get physical strain, you might start to get sick. With mental health, you might get things like brain fog, you might be distracted. With your connection, you might start feeling burnt out or not motivated. And so it's very important that we are aware of these things. We check our physical health. We make sure that we're eating or sleeping or drinking water, taking care of our actual physical body. This is one of the only homes that we have is inside our body. So being aware of the signs that your body's telling you. Do you have a headache? Do you have a stomach ache? What do you actually need? This can also affect your energy levels, your sleep habits, all of those very physical symptoms that you will actually feel in your body. With balance, it's creating boundaries. Self-care for me especially is being able to say the word no. I'm a huge people pleaser, and I would rather say yes, and sometimes I way overextend myself. So my self-care is sometimes actually just using the word no. Having realistic expectations for myself and knowing that I always want to grow and I always want to succeed, but that, I can't do it all in a day. Having gratitude for the small things. It's really hard when we're in a situation like we are right now, and it just seems like everything is really heavy and the weight of the world is a lot. But I try to find gratitude in the smallest things, even just, getting to pet my dog when I come home from work. And then that connection, feeling like you have a purpose. This could be, feeling like you enjoy your major and you're excited for what you could do in the work field when you get out of school or you graduate. You have core values that you can really resort back to. So even when things get really hard and you kind of get in that mindset of, why am I here? What am I doing? I went to college. I know that happens. You kind of can result back to, these are my core values, and this is what I'm striving for even when things get hard. And then having a support system is so important. That could be family, that could be friends, it could be coworkers, just anyone that you trust and you feel like you can go to if you need advice or if you're feeling down, or, just someone to hang out with, even if it is socially distanced. Okay, so just kind of to clarify again, if you need to see this in any other way, remember those ABCs of self-care is awareness, paying attention to what your body is telling you so that you can identify early signs of burnout. As leaders, we are not going to be helpful to our mission or the people that we are leading if we're burnt out. Being burnt out just kind of feels like you're apathetic. You don't really care if things get done or not. You're not really motivated. And I've definitely been there myself. And I know that when I am burnt out, I'm not a great supervisor. I'm not great to, those that I mentor or those that are under me. Because if I kind of have this just overwhelmingly negative feeling because I'm not taking any breaks for myself, I'm not paying attention to what my body's telling me, I'm not going to be a good leader because I'm probably going to feel pretty physically ill. Paying attention to your body is so important too, because when we don't take self-care, we can actually end up getting physically ill. When we don't take care of our mental health, it's actually easier for us to have a weakened immune system from stress and get colds and flus and things like that more easily. And obviously, if you're not in the office or you're not in class, that's probably going to be pretty hard to lead from that position. Balance is, again, finding that healthy dose of work, family time, social activities, and rest. Some of the best supervisors I've ever had are the ones that have balance in their lives, because they make me feel like I can have balance in my life. I've worked for supervisors before that get there early, stay there late, work through their lunch, and it makes me feel like I have to do the exact same thing, that I can't take a break. I can't have family time. And so really being a leader who focuses on balance is going to be so important in helping you really motivate those around you. And then again, that connection, maintaining a positive support system of peers who can be trusted and leaned on when needed. I don't care if you are the king or queen of the world, you still need mentors. You still need people to lean on and grow from and learn from and ask for advice. And so no matter how high up we get in our schooling or our careers, we have to have that connection as leaders so that we have that support system. And they can tell us when we're doing great, and they can also tell us when maybe we've slipped up, right? We need that accountability. So here is, just to kind of wrap it up, a little bit of the things you should be looking at. If you are feeling any of these things in your physical, mental, or spiritual realm, you probably need to incorporate more self-care into your life. These are kind of those physical triggers or those emotional and mental triggers that are going to kind of wake you up to, hey, I probably need to focus more on self-care so I can be a better version of myself and a better leader. Also, some of these things are just things we unfortunately experience as college students, right? So insomnia, exhaustion, increased appetite or loss of appetite, a lack of connection, an attitude of pessimism, loss of memory recall, loss of productivity, loss of purpose, isolation, or lack of joy. If you're experiencing, maybe one or two of these, you're human, right? Like I said, insomnia, exhaustion, maybe increased appetite, that might just come with being a college student. But if you are looking at these and you feel like you have 3 in every category, or you really just, you feel like you're experiencing many of these, that's when you absolutely need to take in some self-care for yourself. Again, drinking water, taking a walk, anything that makes you happy. All right, so I'm actually going to come back to this slide, and I am going to let Taylor North introduce herself and go ahead and take over from here.
Hi everyone, my name is Taylor North, and I am a graduate teaching assistant here at the Ethical Leadership Department. And then I'm also in grad school. I'm going to grad school to get my master's in counseling, and so this topic today is something I'm super passionate about. And one important thing that we kind of need to start working on as society is reducing stigma regarding seeking services to get help with mental health. And so just to kind of give you the definition, stigma is often created by a lack of understanding or fear surrounding mental illness. So there are a lot of different ways that we can kind of aid with stigma happening. This can happen through the media. Oftentimes the villain is seen as someone who has mental health struggles, and they're seen as being bad or dangerous. There are also a lot of stigma associated with people who have mental health struggles being childlike, not being able to take care of themselves, being irresponsible or scary. And then there's also kind of the idea that those who have mental health struggles just have a lack of motivation to get better, and that they aren't trying hard enough, and putting a lot of emphasis that, you know, they're not doing enough to overcome it. And then there's also stigma when we say things like she's crazy or he's crazy. These are just ways that we are just kind of increasing this negative view about mental health. And it can also be seen, like I said in the last bullet point, of like Halloween costumes, you know, people dressing up like they're in straitjackets and things like that, are just adding that thought process that everyone who has mental health struggles all look the same, that they're bad and scary, and that can make us kind of want to avoid those people altogether. So these are some of the harmful effects that we can have when stigma hits us. So the biggest one is we're not going to get help because we're scared of what others might say or how they view us. And this is going to lead us to isolate and feel that social rejection, which is just going to increase kind of feeling alone and maybe increase depression and anxiety. And it can also, you know, happen with like getting bullied or physical violence or harassment from others. And then we can see a lot through how stigma kind of comes across in the resources we have in our society. So for example, you know, health insurance, there's kind of a lack of support there, and that kind of increases kind of those who do have mental health struggles getting into debt and not being able to get jobs that are, you know, higher paid, because people are worried about them having those traits of being maybe irresponsible or not being able to be managed. And so this just kind of leads to an overall decrease in opportunities, whether that's in the school, you know, making friends, your work, or any other social activities. So basically, it's really important to start trying to reduce stigma. You know, I think this past year, it's been talked about a lot more, and we've been increasing awareness about people getting help when they need it, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And so some ways to do this is to really educate yourself. I think there's also a lot of stigma or perceptions about certain illnesses that are not true. And so I think it's important to kind of educate yourself on specific illnesses or disorders to make sure that you're kind of knowing like the truth of it all. And then also being able to kind of be mindful of the language that you use around those people that you spend your time with. You know, you may not be aware that the words you have could impact someone else. And so if you give off any, you know, kind of vibe that you're kind of scared or going to avoid people who have mental health struggles, then your friends may be less likely to want to talk to you about it. And then just remembering that mental health and mental illness is only one part of a person. Oftentimes we don't know that people are struggling, and that's because they can put that mask on every single day. And so it's just important to remember that when you do become aware that someone around you is maybe struggling, you need to be able to support them and let them know that they're going to be in a safe environment with you, rather than kind of only focusing on that one factor of their life.
Great. Thank you so much, Taylor, for your awesome input on that. One of the reasons that we, bring all of this up, even though it is kind of a heavy subject, is because it's something that we're very much facing, not even just in our world, but in our state and even on our own campus, is, we're having issues with self-harm and suicide ideation, as well as just really an environment and a climate where, people do feel down because of everything that we have going on. And we want to encourage you guys, to reach out and as leaders to help reduce this stigma of taking care of yourself and taking care of your mental health, your physical health, and, being able to take that break and really be able to say, okay, I need to focus on me. I've got so much going on, but I do need to allow myself the time to focus on me. And so I want to share a statistic with you guys, but a national poll from 2019 found that 1 out of 3 people are concerned about being fired for seeking mental health services. And so it's so important that we as leaders help reduce this stigma, because if people are afraid of being fired for taking care of themselves, that's not good, first of all, because that's harmful to them and they're not going to get the help they need. But in the long run of things as well, someone who isn't getting the help that they need isn't going to be the employee or the follower that you want when you're leading, right? And so I have a little personal story about this that I'm going to share with you guys. So like I said, I'm from the health field and I used to work for a mental health organization. And we actually had employee mental health services right on site. And I was struggling with some anxiety and some depression, and I didn't get help from the literal access that I had that was right downstairs because of a stigma that existed. In my department, we were very much told that we were working with individuals who had mental health disorders, so we needed to have ourselves in check, and that we needed to kind of be superheroes and not have anything going on with ourselves. And that stigma was so harmful to me as someone who was working in mental health services, because I ended up getting out of it. I ended up kind of switching careers because I didn't have a support system or, a leadership team that supported my mental health. I was afraid of, maybe getting fired or, demoted if I sought out help, even though we were an organization that dealt with mental health services. And so I just really encourage you guys, when you get into leadership roles, to help reduce this stigma in any way that you can, because we want to be leaders who let people get the kind of help that they need. Okay, so to kind of switch gears a little bit, for those of you that are maybe a little bit more literal, I know some people really struggle with self-care, or taking care of their own mental health, because they're the people that are always the givers, right? They're the people that are always putting their school or their friends or their tasks or their assignments above themselves. And they might say, I don't have time for that. That's the last thing on my mind. That's the last thing on my list. But you want to maybe frame it in a way of, instead of, okay, self-care or mental health, maybe think about it this way. How are you taking care of the leader within you? So if you kind of picture it as like there's a little leader inside your head or your heart, they're counting on you, right? They're counting on you to help them with their growth, to expand their capacity for empathy, to help them with furthering their education, with their learning, with being around diverse people, this leader inside you is begging you to take care of them. So if you're one of those people that doesn't really like to think about taking care of yourself, and you're more apt to take care of others, then think about it that there's this little leader inside of you, and you're having to take care of them. Because we do these kinds of leadership development seminars because we're trying to develop ourselves as leaders, right? And the worst thing that we can do as leaders is to stay stagnant, right? To stay in the same place and never progress forward. That's usually not where we see our successes come from. And so take care of that leader inside of you, and fill them up, fill up their cup in any way that is going to progress them forward, into a healthier life, into the job they want, into the relationships they want. Just such a broad spectrum. All right. And then Taylor and I are going to talk to you a little bit about having a seat at the table and sharing safely. And then also one of my coworkers and I, Andrew, just had this conversation yesterday. So Andrew, if you feel like you want to add anything, you absolutely can, or any of you can add as well, because we're kind of, getting to the end where we're going to be wrapping up. But going back again, like I said, with the recap, we talked about sharing our stories, and we've talked about creating a seat at the table for people who maybe aren't like ourselves, or people who need their voice to be heard more than our own, so that we can be leaders of a diverse population, and we can make decisions that help people that just aren't ourselves. And we tell stories so that we can motivate others, and so that we can relate to others. These are all things that also relate to self-care and mental health. Even a few minutes ago, I shared a personal story with you about a time that I was struggling, and why, as a leader, I always want to create a safe space for people who need to take care of themselves, because at some point I was not offered that. But what we have to make sure that we're doing when we're creating space for people and we're sharing stories is that we're doing it safely. Mental health and self-care can be an extremely triggering topic. And sometimes we think that when we share other people's vulnerabilities, that we're helping. We think, maybe by sharing a story about suicide that has happened on campus or in our community, we think that, maybe we're helping and we're trying to reduce stigma, but there is a way that we have to do it. If we are going to share not only our stories, but other people's stories and other people's most vulnerable moments, we have to, as leaders, be able to create a resolution or some sort of solution. We cannot share stories without any sort of help and assistance on the other end. And so what I mean by this is, Taylor's going to kind of take over here, but if you're going to share someone's story about how they struggled with depression, or, they had suicide ideation or thoughts, or anything that they're struggling with, if you're going to share this story and you're going to kind of make it a template or any sort of platform, we have to let people know that as leaders, we have resources for them to access, right? Again, even if it's something simple like self-care, letting them know that there's a safe park that they can go walk around. It can be simple like that. Or maybe they need access to food, and we hook them up with our Daily Bread food bank, and we get them food, or if we are sharing stories of people's mental health struggles, that we are setting them up with resources. And so Taylor is going to share some of those with you.
Yeah, so since I am getting my master's, I do have the opportunity right now to be a intern at a counseling service. And so I do get to have my own clients, which has been a wonderful experience. And something that a lot of my friends and family have been asking me recently is, are you guys receiving a lot of phone calls compared to normal? Because of 2020 and everything like that. And the honest answer is, from my perception, that we haven't had any more phone calls and people reaching out than we would have had last year. And I think a lot of that does come with people still having stigma. And so, yes, it's been wonderful that the past couple months, I think we've been bringing a lot more awareness to mental health, but I think there's still kind of a lack of people kind of getting help that they need. And so this is just a list of resources that we have around Stillwater. This is by no means the only options. There's, so many, if you look them up. There's a lot of places in Oklahoma City and Tulsa as well. But these are just some of the options that are pretty close by. And so these are some counseling services with their phone numbers. And so if anyone wants to take a photo, I'll give you a couple seconds to do that.
Also, if you have any questions about any of these, feel free to ask, and Taylor and I will answer at the best of our ability. Like Taylor said, you can feel free to take a screenshot or picture with your phone if you need it. Even if this isn't something that you feel like you need for yourself, remember again that, if we are creating a seat at the table and we're sharing people's stories, when it comes to self-care and mental health, it's always good to be able to refer people to resources so that they can get the help and assistance that they need. It's just kind of one of those responsibilities that we take on as leaders.
So how do you separate, I hate to say normal, but, a stressful or difficult situation and someone dealing with that versus a mental illness or a condition that requires a psychological or medical intervention? Essentially, how do you know when someone needs help?
Yeah, thank you so much. That's a wonderful question, and it's so important as well. Taylor, do you want to take it or do you want me to?
Yeah, so I think it obviously kind of depends on the situation that someone is going through. It usually kind of happens when that person is unable to kind of manage what they have going on, and it starts to impact their work, their home life, their friend life. For more than, maybe a week. I'm someone who I'm so passionate about therapy that it's kind of an opportunity that I think everyone should have in their lifetime to attend. You don't have to go for a very long time. So I think that that's kind of something that's up to you to decide when it's best. And if you're looking for someone else and trying to help them out, we can never really force someone to do something they don't want to do. But I think being able to provide them the resources that you know of to kind of just get that information out to them is something that you can do on your part. And then also just normalizing the experience of, maybe wanting help from others, or just knowing that it's okay to have a day that you're struggling. But being able to, help someone out in that way too.
And I would just add to that. Anytime it comes to when someone is talking about harming themselves, or they feel like a hopelessness about their life, or anytime that you have any worry or concern that they may be harmful to themselves, then I think that's when you should definitely reach out to get the professional help that they need.
Yes, absolutely. What Taylor and Andrew said are spot on. And to just kind of reiterate what they said, we all, I think Jacob, you were asking the question, we all do have times where we're stressed, and we may say things like, oh, I hate this, or I hate my classes, or I'm just so stressed, I'm so tired. That is a normal human feeling. That's a normal human response. But to really reiterate what Taylor had said, if it is something where people feel like they're hopeless, they have their motivation is gone, they are feeling this way for longer than a week, things like that, those are big red flags, as well as Andrew said, any mention of self-harm, or not wanting to be here anymore, or giving away possessions, things like that. So there is some stuff in the chat box. Let me just open it real quick.
Okay. So to answer Tian's question about helping people who maybe don't have health insurance or can afford counseling. So I know that the place that I work, we do a sliding scale. So for example, if you make between $0 to $1,000 a month, you would pay $10. And we don't have to do anything with insurance. And so that could be an option. And then kind of just same options for other places. I think, it's just kind of a trial and error of calling places and seeing kind of what they can offer you. As we know, with a lot of the OSU services offered, those first couple sessions are free, and then you can start to pay. And so there are ways to make it affordable. You just kind of have to go out there and kind of get that information.
Yeah. So psychologists, Taylor, these are both on campus and off, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then next slide. This is crisis intervention. So this is what I worked in when I was in the mental health field. So kind of the conversation we were having with Jacob, crisis intervention does happen, when things are escalated, when they are kind of at that pivotal point of needing to get someone help immediately. And so we have these different resources, as well as the phone number for them. The suicide hotline, I think actually recently finally got a 3-digit number, like 911. I'm so sorry, I don't know what the 3-digit number is, but I think that's so helpful because, if you feel like you're in a crisis, you don't want to type out that big number, right? And so we're seeing kind of improvements there, even with, from people, leaders like you saying, hey, this isn't working. We need something more simple. Did you touch on telehealth at all, Taylor?
No, I didn't. And so that's also a great point to add in. And so with telehealth, the rule is that you can seek services as long as you're in the same state with the person who you're seeking services from. And so this is kind of a great opportunity for people to get services, because you can do your teletherapy from your own home, and you don't have to be limited to only Stillwater options. And so if you wanted to see someone in Oklahoma City, most likely they would just ask you to come in maybe for the first session, get to know you, and then from there on out, we have Zoom where you can just do like the online face-to-face, and that's what I do with most of my clients, and it feels just the same. So that's also a great kind of option to have as well.
Awesome. Thank you, Taylor. All right. I am going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen now and check the chat box. Someone said that Open Path Collective is another great resource for counseling services that's based on income. Awesome. I think we can all see the chat box, so if you want to look at that, feel free. But yeah, just to kind of conclude, thank you all so much for being here and listening to this topic. I know it's not your typical leadership presentation, right? But we at the Center for Ethical Leadership really want to expand the idea of what leadership is and what it looks like from just, this positional idea of being president or having a role. It's so much more. It's your personal growth, it's your professional growth, it's even your health that help you to be the kind of leader that will shape you into having the kind of success that you want. So I'm going to open it up to questions, but before I do that, I have to give the code word of the day for people who are watching this in the future, that are watching the recording so that they can get their attendance. And that code word of the day is jellyfish. That's my favorite animal, and so I came up with jellyfish. All right. This is a safe space. This is an open forum. Any questions, comments, concerns, for me, for Taylor, Andrew, I know we have even some more coworkers from my office on here. Ask away, my friends. Or don't ask, that's fine too. If you're ready to be done, we can also be done.
So I guess this question was more about the psychological profession as a general, but what efforts have been made as someone who's had family members who've suffered from mental health disorders? What efforts have been made to better diagnose and treat more life-limiting psychological conditions within the last decade or so?
Sorry, I just don't know if you want to take it or if you want me to take it first. Taylor is currently getting her master's, so she may know more of the textbook, actual facts and studies, and then I may know just from having experience in the field. So
so usually when people come to the place that I work, we can do assessments on them. There's also the DSM, and the DSM lists exactly what people should have in order to have a specific diagnosis. And so those are kind of the ways that we structure kind of how we diagnose people. There are definitely a lot of considerations that still need to be included. We talk about that a lot in the classes that I take about what problems there still are. But I do just kind of encourage people to be aware for themselves and do that education on their own as well, for themselves. And then there's also being able to, get that input from multiple people if you feel like you kind of want to make sure that that's exactly what the case is and everything like that. Do you have anything to add, Sarah?
Yes. Sorry, I was reading the chat box to make sure there wasn't anything I was missing. So yeah, Taylor referred to the DSM, which is the Diagnostic Statistics Manual. And I believe are we on 5 or are we on the DSM 5?
I think it's 7 now.
7. See, look at that. I graduated in 2016 and we're already making strides there. But yeah, so the Diagnostic Statistics Manual is really just like this encyclopedia of mental health diagnoses and how to spot it and how to work through it. And the reason I was asking the number is just because as we find more research, we update this in the field constantly. The thing about the mental health field is that it is a trial and error field. It is kind of a relatively new field because if you think about it, we used to just put people in mental institutions, and luckily we've outlawed that. But cognitive therapy and different things like that is relatively new as far as, you know, the practice goes, not the science, but the practice. And so it is, again, you know, Jacob, it is a trial and error kind of thing. I think we're constantly in the field doing studies, gathering data, doing clinical trials of, you know, weighing the benefits of things like medicine to food, even using food as therapy, you know, different nutritional supplements, cognitive therapy, talk therapy. I really think it's just a matter of, you know, trying to find the right fix. And something that I think in the mental health field that's so important is that, you know, you don't just use one avenue. If, you know, someone is dealing with something that is really impacting their life and medication isn't helping them, you know, you might want a mix of different things: medication, supplements, cognitive therapy. Really, just, this is not a one size fits all kind of thing. And what works for someone isn't going to work for someone else. But just being able to work with someone who is accepting that you're your own person, you're your own leader, you have your own little leader inside you, and that you need care that might be different from someone else. So yeah, great question. Jacob, you always have awesome questions. We have a chat box. Okay, DSM-5 is currently out. DSM-7 will come out soon. Perfect. So we're going a little bit over time here. So does anyone else have any, you know, questions or, again, comments, concerns, anything before we kind of wrap up? Okay, I'll just remind you one more time, most of you do have your first and last name written as your screen name, and so we're able to take attendance for that. But if you do not have your first and last name listed, just go ahead and type it in the chat box so that we can make sure we get your attendance taken down. And we do have a chat, sorry. Do you have to be a leader to be in this group? No, not at all. So I think, you know, maybe you're thinking about leader in the very traditional form, meaning, you know, you have a position or something like that. I think we're all leaders. You know, at some point, we're going to lead something, whether it's a group project, whether it's your dog on a walk. We're all leaders at some point. And so no, you don't have to have, you know, some formal position or anything like that, or even consider yourself, you know, a leader to be in these development series. Really, this is open to everyone and anyone. We have staff, faculty, students. I think we have even like some alumni on here. This is really just a group of people who want to better themselves and want to be better leaders and better people. So yeah, we're happy to have you. You are so welcome. All right, guys. Well, I think we're going to wrap up. Like I said, this is the last one of the semester. The Leadership Development Series for the spring semester will be up on our website probably by December. So you can register for those if you would like. And I appreciate you all so much. This is one of my favorite parts of my job, getting to get on here and chat with you all. So I hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, holidays. Hopefully you get a little time off. You can get some self-care in. You can take a breather. Again, if you need anything, stop by office 232 or 250 in the Student Union, and we are here for you in any capacity that you need. So thanks, guys. Bye.